why is your boulevard in Jackson the most important place to minister? You would say what?
It's home, man.
It's home.
That's primarily why I'm here. My mama lived 45 minutes away. That's primarily
it's
why I'm here.
Because my mama lives 45 minutes away and they can watch the kids when I'm away.
Exactly.
Welcome to my boulevard.
All right, so welcome to the This Is My Boulevard podcast. I am here with a good friend, someone that I have learned to respect and admire because he has brought so much clarity to so many things that we have done with My Boulevard. In so many ways, if you guys feel like our message has been clear, I owe some of that to the man that I'm talking to today, Phillip Holmes. What's up, Phillip? How are you doing?
Hey, what's up, Dhati? Thanks for having me on, man.
I'm excited to talk to you today about what we're, just this concept of what you bring to the body of Christ and to the kingdom of God. There's so many different, so much controversy, I would say, around this. Like when you think about like people will talk about business terms and marketing and messaging and all of those things, and why don't bring that secular stuff into church spaces or Christian spaces, and there's so much tension around that. But you have decided to jump in full head in on this and to help people to do this. First, before we kind of get into the what you do specifically, I would love just to kind of hear about your journey, right? Just like as a believer in Christ, I know you have done and served in so many different things, in so many different ways, but I would love for you just to kind of just share about your journey and your story of like in ministry.
Yeah. So I kind of fell into marketing in some ways when I initially, I guess, was in college and was trying to figure out, what it is I wanted to do. I actually started, my childhood, I started preaching when I was 11 years old. And before going to college, I grew up in a small country town. So before going to college, I didn't even realize that like people did pastoral ministry or preaching full time. All the preachers that I knew were bivocational. Then I got to college and my state of mind was, okay, well, I'll do communications, right? That seems like a natural fit. And over time, I began to realize, okay, actually I can major in biblical studies. Okay, I'll do that. And long story short, that eventually led to me finishing my bachelor's in biblical studies. But right after school, I found myself right back in sort of the area of communications and marketing. So that started with an organization that I co-founded about 10 years ago. It used to be called the Reform African American Network. Now it's called The Witness. And that's kind of was when social media was becoming more and more the norm. And around 2011, I think I joined Twitter and we started promoting RAN. And so I kind of began to dabble, if you will, into digital marketing, because digital marketing at that time, honestly, was barely a thing beyond email.
Yeah.
And so, you have the rise of social media and all that stuff. And that's kind of how I got into communications and marketing. And over time, I learned how to write. So because we were running essentially a content website, I had to learn how to help produce content for that website. And I eventually took a job at another Christian ministry and stayed up there for about a year in Minneapolis, working with Desiring God as a content strategist, transitioned back home, and eventually took over communications and marketing for Reformed Theological Seminary, where I was until 2022. And so over the course of the last decade, I've been kind of in marketing in one way or another. And then really in the last maybe 6 or 7 years, it's been what I've been doing full time.
Yeah, I love that. And so how did you go from that into the birth of what you're doing now with High is Good? And yeah, share a little bit about just kind of how and what is High is Good?
Yeah, High is Good is a marketing, design, and consulting agency. So we actually have 3 arms of Highest Good. We do leadership consulting and development. We do marketing, and we also do design. Most of our clients are in marketing and design, and we're essentially just trying to help specifically churches and nonprofits, but we've worked with some individuals outside of that, but primarily churches and nonprofits actually leverage and utilize marketing to accomplish their mission or to accomplish their goals. And so, we've primarily worked with nonprofits, and one of the challenges that we've kind of seen is either people don't really know what to do with marketing, they're intimidated by it. Maybe they have some misconceptions when it comes to marketing and design and what those things are supposed to be used for. And so we work really well with individuals who are looking for an outside expert to come in and kind of handle that arm of their organization or their church.
Yeah. And so so oftentimes when I think about just that tension, because the first time I remember talking to you, I was just like, man, Phillip, I am like the anti-marketer, and not anti-marketer like I don't like marketing, but anti-marketer in the sense of like, I really don't know. So like when I think about social media and Twitter, like I get sad for all of my followers and the people that follow me, because I'm like, I always wonder, like, I don't want to like film what I'm eating, and I don't want to like take snapshots of life because no one cares. Like, and I never do. That has led me to do nothing on social media. So there's that. I've always read with that tension, because oftentimes, and then it was just like when I want to promote like what we're doing, I want to get it out. Then I'm like, I don't want to feel like this kind of car salesman, and I vacillate between no one cares and I don't want to be a car salesman, and I struggle with that tension oftentimes. And I was just like, man, but I also struggle with this burden. Like, I gotta get this message out to people because I feel like God has given me something to say, and all of that tension, creates like this kind of apathy, or even like things where I just freeze, like the freeze, I don't do anything. But as I was like perusing on the site and just kind of reminding you what it says, like at the beginning of the Highest Good site, you say, upgrade your design and elevate your impact. Why is like design and marketing important for spaces like that I'm ministering in, as you talk about nonprofit work or church work?
Yeah, so a few reasons. So I think there are three common lies that pastors and nonprofits believe about marketing. Number one, I would say they believe that design is just aesthetic. So many think that design is only about making things look good. And in reality, design is about effective communication and creating an engaging experience. So it's not just about beauty. Beauty definitely matters, but it's about function and about conveying the church's or the nonprofit's message in a way that is clear and in a way that is effective, and in a way that does not distract from what it is that you're actually trying to communicate, doesn't distract from who it is you are, or doesn't give a false impression of who you actually are. Number two, a lot of people think, and I think you alluded to this, that marketing is either inauthentic or manipulative, right? There's this belief that marketing is supposed to be inherently deceitful or manipulative. And marketing can be used ethically to inform and connect with your community. So it's about clearly sharing who you are and your values, so that you're doing what you're supposed to do to reach the people, and they can ultimately determine whether or not they're the right fit for whatever it is that you're promoting, whatever message it is that you're conveying. And the last one is that it's too expensive. So people think that effective design and marketing require a large budget, and budget is definitely a factor. But there are some cost-effective and even free tools and strategies that can be deployed. So creativity and authenticity outweigh big budget campaigns. And if you can figure out how to do the simple things really well, you can get really big results.
Yeah, I definitely fell into the number two trap, because you know, and you've been to the conferences, you've been to the things, like, and how people sometimes they're saying and they're overselling people, and then you go to their spaces like, man, you ain't did none of that stuff that you said that you did.
Yeah, exactly.
Like, so I was just
Exactly.
like, oh, that. So I always was like, I never want to oversell myself or overpromise something, and that's what it felt like for me. Is just like marketing is kind of overselling, overpromising, you know, some of stuff. And so I definitely fell into that trap of number two, you know, in there, you know, and being able to do that. Like, what would you say are some ways that you have helped people like me, right, to overcome? Because like we represent the My Boulevard family of churches, like we represent in practitioners and nonprofit leaders. There's so many of us are in that same thing. They have this burden to like, man, I got so much to give that God has given me, but I don't want to be make false promises, or I don't want to be over salesy because I'm still trying to figure this out. You know, the whole factor of when you're kind of presenting a false self. How can people who struggle with kind of presenting a false, making false promises or over not feeling like a salesman, like how do you help people to overcome that? Because they have this burden to communicate a message that they feel like that is God-given, but they struggle with either making false promises or, you know, being that sleazy salesman.
You know, a huge part of our job often is education. And so it's always great when we're talking to individuals who kind of recognize what they don't know and are open to trusting our expertise. And one of the things that we try to educate them on is what marketing actually is and what it isn't. And so marketing is all about enhancing clarity and eliminating confusion. And so at the root of what I'm trying to do with a brand or with a church or with an organization is I'm not trying to at all change who you are. I'm not trying to make you more palatable. I'm not trying to water down who you are, because here's the thing. Ultimately, if you try to pull somebody in with something that's a lie, they're not going to last long anyways. So they'll come and then they'll realize, hey, you're not actually delivering on what it is that you promised me. And it's super important for churches and nonprofits to bring people in that are going to be preferably lifelong members or partners of their cause, as opposed to individuals who just come in one time, pay a fee, and then they're gone in 3 to 6 months. That's not sustainable. Nor is it the desired end result. The desired end result is people who come in and they partner for the long term. And so if you want that, you got to be clear and you got to be truthful up front. The other part about it is, though, you got to actually believe that what it is that you have is valuable. And so if you don't believe that it's valuable, if you don't believe that it's compelling, all the marketing in the world isn't going to be able to convince you of that. Isn't going to be able to convince the end user of that. And so you have to actually be in a place where you're like, hey, I have something that is worth giving to. I have something that is worth joining. I have something that is worth selling. Because if you sincerely believe that, then you should not have a problem communicating clearly what it is that you've done and the end results that it can actually have. And so ultimately, if you're struggling with how can I be truthful, how can I be accurate, you want to make sure that your primary goal in your marketing and in your branding is to enhance clarity and to eliminate confusion.
I love that. I love that. It's you've been preaching since 11, and you know, and so I know you've heard this statement before. If there's mist in the pulpit, then there's fog in the pews, right? And I love that. That's kind of what comes to me when you talked about this, that concept of enhancing clarity, right? Is that because sometimes we got a message that's so important, right? Whether it's the gospel message that we're communicating or whether it's whatever God has burdened us to present through our church or nonprofit, you know, but when there's mist in the pulpit, when we have mist in ours, then there's going to be fog and people to understand it. And so what I hear you saying is that is like enhancing clarity is only going to help us to better communicate. right? Communicate
Exactly.
the message that we're getting. And I don't know if those are the things, but I was going to ask you the question, like, what question, like, is high as good, or specifically your burden? What are you trying to solve with people? You know, what problem does that answer? I think about it like this, like whenever I'm hungry and I was like, man, I'm hungry and I need some chicken, right? Chick-fil-A has presented themselves in my life, right? We know Christian chicken. They have presented themselves in my life to say, if I'm hungry and if I want some chicken, Chick-fil-A is solving that problem. But for you, in kind of highest good and what your burden, like what problem that people come up with that says, man, Phillip, highest good, they're the solution to that problem.
Yeah. So, there are thousands of companies that solve the design problem. There are thousands of companies that solve the marketing problem. But I think the two problems that we're uniquely positioned to solve are organizations in one or two places. Either they don't have a marketing person or anybody on their team or staff who's an expert in the area of marketing and design, and they need someone to come in and own that so that they don't have to worry about it. And when I say they don't have to worry about it, that does not mean that they don't have to think about it at all. They don't have to be engaged or involved in some of the decision-making processes. But it does mean that all things related to marketing, you have someone on your team who you can trust to either make those decisions or give wise counsel on what's the best approach. And so those are the individuals that we're primarily fit to serve. And so it's less about, hey, is there a specific marketing or design need? It's more about, hey, kind of where are you guys in your stage of growth? Do you need just somebody to kind of come alongside and support, or do you need somebody to come in and take ownership? And we would definitely be best equipped to take ownership. And then we can also support. So let's just say, you have a person on your staff that you trust, who's your strategist, who you trust to make those decisions, and they simply need help executing, which is often common as well. We also are very equipped to help those individuals to take whatever strategies that they have and to put those strategies and to execute those strategies. And so those are kind of the two sort of things that we're able to solve for an organization who might be looking for help in this area of marketing and design.
Yeah. So support and ownership, and you guys are equipped to do that. And I know that you have done that for, like you said earlier, individuals, small organizations, startup organizations, and also larger established organizations. How would you, like, what are some diagnostic questions potentially that you would say, like, hey, man, I'm resonating with this. There's a need for this. How do I know if I'm ready for this, to take that step?
Yeah. I mean, if you're trying to figure out whether or not you're ready to take that step, these are usually individuals who are already looking to hire a marketing or design person. And so they're usually thinking about, hey, I'm ready to hire somebody full time. I have the budget to hire somebody full time. And here's what tends to happen in those situations. You hire one person, but oftentimes that one person can only do so much. So either you're going to get somebody who is really good at strategy, but not very good at executing and really following through on all the tasks that they have to execute, because marketing is a huge job. It's not a one person job. One person can kind of own the strategy, but it's going to be very hard for one person to own the strategy and execute on their own strategy. So the scenarios that you're going to get is somebody who's, again, really good at coming up with a strategy that sounds good, and you're just like, hey, let's launch it. And then 6 months later, you're like, we haven't really done anything, because that person is kind of overwhelmed with, and usually, like, people who are good at strategy lack tenacity, right, to actually see those things through. Or if you find somebody who can strategize and execute, oftentimes their ideas probably aren't going to be as good, And because essentially they've come up with these ideas, but nobody's really vetted or thought through, hey, whether or not these ideas are workable. Because again, marketing is a huge job, and those individuals are extremely rare. And then you have individuals who are really good at executing, but they don't really know what it is they should be doing. And so what you end up with is basically mediocre marketing programs. And so what we try to do is to tell individuals, hey, instead of hiring one person to do a 5-man job, just go ahead and hire a team for the cost of one employee. And this team can essentially come in and remove some of those burdens. And they actually should be accountable to results. They should be able to let you know what progress they're making, what they're owning, what the results are, and all that. But that's the type of person that you're looking for. The other thing, though, that is really important is don't start marketing only when you have a specific campaign or it's an emergency, right? Like you kind of got to make marketing a part of your foundational budget, and it's got to be something that you're doing at all times, so that you're building the system, so that you have time to test and figure out what works, instead of hey, we have this particular campaign, or we have this particular thing, and these are our numbers, and now we're going to try to bring on marketing in order to try to hit those numbers. That usually doesn't end well if you don't already have a marketing system or a marketing plan that's in place that's built around that. Asking anybody to come in and start from scratch is going to set you up for disappointment and ultimately set them up for failure.
Yeah, I love that. And, when you were talking, basically the first half of it, you were basically saying that Jesus is not applying for marketing right now. So you can't get one person to do everything, that is gifted in all areas. It can do all areas and perform miracles. So, that one individual when you hire is not a miracle maker. And so just also understand the limitations. And the second thing is, I think about it when you go on mission trips and they say, hey, don't wait till you're thirsty before you ask for something to drink, because by that time you're already dehydrated, right? Like, make sure you are drinking before. And I think that's the same kind of what you're saying with marketing. It's like, man, make sure like marketing is a part of the foundation, the core at the beginning. Don't wait till you realize, man, my marketing needs help. And then you try to go find that at the very beginning. Don't wait till you're thirsty before you get something to drink, That's good. Man, before I let you go, man, one more kind of thought question for those of us right now that wants to kind of build that foundation, but they're a startup, they don't even know, but they want to build the foundation of and put that implemented. They're not ready to necessarily hire anybody they're a solopreneur in that regards right now. What are some things that you would say to that individual, whether it's a church or organization, organizational leader, that they can do to upgrade their design and elevate their impact? What are some practical things that you feel like they could help do right now immediately?
Yeah. So the first thing you got to do is you got to decide whether you're going to learn or you're going to delegate. So as leaders, you got to recognize your strengths and your limitations. And so if design and marketing are outside your area of expertise and you don't have the time to learn the basics that will help you make informed decisions, you're going to have to delegate these tasks to somebody who has those skills. And it could be a staff member, a volunteer, or a professional agency. But you got to figure out what works best for your particular goals and your budgets and your resources. Number two, you want to focus on the goal and not your personal preference. So let's just say you decide to delegate it to someone else on your team. So when you're reviewing designs and marketing materials, always make sure that you're aligning your feedback with your organization's goals and missions. So avoid basing your feedback. I see this all the time with leaders. You ask them for feedback and they give you feedback based on their personal taste. And so you want to make sure that you're aware of that, and you're saying, okay, if somebody gives me feedback, there are certain things that I'm here to give feedback on when it comes to maybe some of the colors or some of the design aesthetic decisions. I'm not going to worry about that right now. That's a problem that we can solve in the future. But in the short term, what's most important is that I make sure that these things align with our core values, and rather than my personal preferences. And so when you're trying to figure out what you need to care about, you want to care about clarity and comprehension. Is the message clear and is it easy to understand? Like, does the design distract from the message? Is the copy that's written for the marketing campaign, is it clear on what it is that we want people to do? Is it aligned with our mission? And is it engaging to the audience? So is it written in a way that is boring and maybe even confusing, or is it written in a way that people can actually relate to what is being said? And then you want to avoid obsessing again over minor aesthetic details. You also want to avoid obsessing over trends rather than substance, because a lot of times we start looking at what this organization over here is doing and what that organization over there is doing. Well, you don't really know that organization's budget, right? And you don't really know what that church is working with. So you want to focus on substance rather than trends. And you really don't have to overcomplicate it. Like simplicity, what I've found in a marketing campaign, simplicity is key. And so you want to avoid making things more complex than they actually need to be.
Keep it simple, stupid. Keep it simple. That is definitely the key. I love simplicity because I'm an old school football player. I'm like, can you put it in the mud, draw? I like that type of design in place. So I love it, man. Well, Phillip, thank you for joining us, man. I hope that if you are out there and you are hearing that you would hear what God has burdened you to do is important for the world to receive. But the question is like, are you communicating in a way that people can understand it so you can have the greatest possible impact that God has given you to do? And so I appreciate you, Phillip. Thank you for joining us. Thank you for this time, man. This is helpful. And if you do need that help, High is Good is the solution, is a group that can help you to do that. Phillip, how can they get in touch with you? How can they find you? Where do they go if there was like, man, I want to take this next step?
Yeah, so depends on what type of help you need, but the best place to go would be highestgood.co. That's HIGHEST good, GOOD.co. And you can reach out to us there. We have a big burnt orange call to action button that allows you to book a demo session or schedule a call with us. And that site primarily has all of our design information. But if you're interested in even working with us in marketing, just use that form, sign up as best as you can, and then let us know that Dhati sent you. We primarily take marketing clients from referrals. So let us know that Dhati sent you, and look forward to having a conversation with you and seeing how we can help.
Appreciate it, man. Thank you so much. And that is it for This Is My Boulevard. Until next time, peace.